Good morning, church. It's Pastor Mike. This morning for our devotion, I wanted us to jump back into Matthew 23, where we were yesterday. There's just so much there. It's such a rich set of teaching from Jesus. But reading it made me think a little bit about last night. Mandy made a great dinner, and we're eating. And then, even as you finish your plate, and it was great, and you think, well, do you want seconds or do you want any more? Mandy asked me, and I think, well, maybe just one bite more. Just a little bit more. Even though I've already had a full plate, even though I'm probably already full if I give my body 5 minutes just to digest and take that food in. That probably says quite a bit about, this current situation here. But that's beside the point. Often, if we have something that's good, that tastes good, that feels good, we say, well, I just want a little bit more of that. Just a tiny bit more. And it feels like absolute human nature to want a little bit more of something that's good, that makes us feel good. But the truth is that it's not always just food that we want a little bit more of. It's things that make us feel safe, secure, in control, whatever it might be. We always want a little bit more. Especially, we see that in our world when it comes to power, authority, prestige, fame, money, whatever it might be, those things that help us to craft the illusion around ourselves that we are in control, that nothing can stop us if we don't want it to. Those things we always want seconds and thirds. We always want that one extra bite, no matter how many bites of it we've already had. We want to feel in control. We want to have the power to feel like we are guiding our own boat. But listen to what Jesus says about trying to grasp power for ourselves. In Matthew chapter 23, down all the way in verses 11 and 12. So quite a bit from where we were yesterday when we were looking at chapter 23. But Jesus says this to his disciples. He says, "The greatest among you will be your servant. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted." Now, it seems like your standard, typical Jesus teaching here that the world's going to be set on its head, that things are going to be twisted, and the lowly will be raised up, and those who are on high will be brought down. But listen to that first verse there. That command, that promise of what the greatest of all God's disciples will be. He says, "You will be their servant." Greatness in God's kingdom is a different thing than greatness in our world. Greatness in God's kingdom is not measured by a bank account. It's not measured by how many followers you have on social media, how many votes you receive in an election. Greatness is achieved whenever we take our own tendency to want to rise up, to want to be in control, be in charge, be at the front, and instead give that away to God and say, how can I serve my brothers and sisters? Not just how can they serve me or how can I be above them, but how can I be below them? After all, remember, it was Jesus on the last night with his disciples, knowing that he was the Son of God and was going to be killed, still looked at them with love and walked around that table of the Last Supper and washed their feet. He was a servant to all. He didn't let what was due him, whatever respect or power and prestige that he felt like maybe I should have. Instead, he said, no, that's not going to define how I deal with my brothers and sisters, with my disciples. Instead, I will serve so that you see what it looks like to serve with love. God calls us to the same, to serve with love. No matter what we are due or think we are due in this world, we give that up for the greater good of loving one another. That's God's kingdom in a nutshell, that if we love one another with everything we have, we don't have to worry about how it shakes out at the end. Jesus promises when he tells his disciples, because the natural reaction will be, well, what about me? What if I don't get what I need? What if? We become scared of those unknowns if we don't take it into our own hands. But Jesus' promise is secure in the next verse. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. when we don't take more and more and more from that buffet of power that exists in this world, then God says, in the end, I promise you, you will be full. Not just of power, but you will share in my glory in the kingdom of God. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. And the flip side of that is also true. Those who exalt themselves, those who take and take and take from prestige and power and authority and privilege in this world, will have a rude awakening whenever this world is flipped on its head. So I pray that you live a life now in which you will be exalted in the life to come. A life of humility, a life of love, a life of service and servanthood, knowing that you don't have to be your own PR master. You don't have to convince the world how great you are. Instead, love the world and convince them of how great God is. He has the power to save, the power to provide, and the power to sustain each and every one of us if we will lean on him. God bless you today.